I think you've listened to a galaxy of very eminent speakers who put the issue in one sense, a local perspective, a larger perspective going back centuries. I'm trying to look at, I pick up some of the threads which they've mentioned, but I want us to understand in one sense, you had in 1993 the Kuki-Naga clashes. I think over 1,000 people were killed. In May 2023, just a little over 200, 250 people were killed. Nobody remembers the Kuki-Naga clashes. It never lasted for 21 months. The clashes took place. The state machinery acted. Peace was there. There was displacement. Some villages were evacuated. Kukis migrated, bulk of them, Kukis migrated to other parts of Manipur. And life went on as, you might say, normal. Again, few days later. You had the Kukis and the Paithas clashing, I think in 96, 97 and so on. Again, you had hundreds killed. Again, the state, what I call the authority of the state imposed itself. It didn't look at whether they were Kukis, they were Paithas. Today they're all called Kukis by the Meithes, but they're a whole set of different tribes. But again, some migration, some evacuations took place. Kukis migrated here, there, and things settled down again. Nobody had this issue of Manipur as it is today. What is different about this situation today? Situation arose. I'm not wanting to go into who is to blame and so on. I think there's enough been written about it. I've myself written about it. If you indulge in what I call demonizing a portion of a state, the repercussions will be there in the years to come. And that is what we are seeing. That you lose the authority of the state to restore law and order because trust has been lost. And therefore, what some of my speakers have mentioned earlier in the past, it is important to slowly restore that measure of trust. Kukis and Nagas have fought, Kukis and Meithes have fought, Kukis and Paithas have fought. First time, Kukis and Meithes have fought. There was never any historical evidence of a Kuki-Meithe clash in recorded history. This was a manufactured narrative which came about in the last 3-4 years by saying Kukis are infiltrators, Kukis are terrorists, Kukis are narco-terrorists, Kukis are X, Y, Z, etc., etc. And this build-up of this actually created the situation into which the May 3rd is just a situation where the whole thing exploded. There is also a second aspect which many people have not written about, many people have not even talked about much because it's the media itself to an extent has not focused upon this. What also took place on the night of May 3rd, 4th, etc., was that all Maithe Christian churches in the Imphal Valley were all destroyed. And to the evidence that I have, about 18,000 Maithe Christians were all reconverted back to Hinduism. Ghar Vapsi. Under the pressure of the gun. They said, you either reconvert or you're going to die. So there was another angle to this, which is actually in one sense what I call as the national angle, the national security angle, getting subservient to another issue which almost for the first time is really coming into the Northeast in a major way. And it's important to understand this because that is what has really in one sense resulted in this situation where 21 months of you have this total situation which any other part of India, the government would have been thrown out the next day. If I want to give you an example of what happened in Manipur, it is like saying people in Delhi, in Greater Kailash, Haskas, you name it, South Delhi, Lutyens Delhi, if they want to go to Haryana, UP, Rajasthan, etc., they cannot go by road. They have to go to Indira Gandhi National Airport and fly out to Lucknow, Jaipur, and so on and so forth. This is what has happened to 50% of the population. And on the other side, you have got, on the cookie side, if they want to go for any medical attention, they can't come to the state capital, which means they can't come to All India Institute of Medical Science, they can't come to Safdarjung Hospital, RML, they have to go to the neighboring state, Aizawl, and then to Guwahati for treatment. And this has happened for last 21 months with both central and state governments. The double-engine Sarkar not really functioning at all. And the media in one sense has contributed a lot to the cover-up of what was happening on the ground. Because you didn't cover that the people who are displaced in the camps still remain almost without hardly any attention from any financial assistance from the state government, in spite of all the money which has been said to have been dispersed. You got Supreme Court case, I was just talking with him, you had the Supreme Court which took up cases and then did nothing. They appointed 3-member women judges of the Supreme Court to look at the compensation and relief for all. And in effect, really nothing. The only thing they did was set up the SIT for all those rape and murder cases, but never monitored it so that you don't have any feedback on what really happened. Many of you are not even, may have forgotten all about it. There was a judicial commission set up by the state government with a retired judge of the High Court to go into what were the causes of the riots, whose lapse, whose fault was it, and so on. Have you heard about the Judicial Commission? It was supposed to give its report last November, never gave the report. Given a 6 months extension, they haven't done any work at all. So you have a Judicial Commission which is supposed to, at least if the Judicial Commission had said there is a responsibility of X, Y, Z, some action would have been taken. The Judicial Commission has not done its work. And no media has pointed out saying that why is the Judicial Commission there at all if you are not willing to do your work? What is so much work that they have to do that they can't do it in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months? To at least give an interim report saying that this is our findings after visiting Manipur and any other place they want to go. Everybody has forgotten about the entire Judicial Commission. You may say there are lots of Judicial Commission reports. In the past also, nothing has happened. But nothing has, at least you must be able to put out the report. If you don't put out the report, you are actually, what shall I say, the people of Manipur have been let down. Not only have people who are displaced within the state of Manipur, there are people displaced who have come to Delhi. I think about between 1,200 to 2,000 people are living in Delhi. And there is no chance of going back. I know that the general mentioned that, one of the first things you have to do is to get them back. There is no way that they are going to go back till the trust is built up between the communities. And that element of trust, which is to be built up in the communities, is going to take some time, because it's a feature of what we call, and General put out, the ethnic identity. The ethnic identity is itself a matter in which everybody looks inwards. My tribe, my clan, over everything else. And because of that feature which is a speciality of the Northeast, which is its strength of the Northeast, it also builds up a lot of community strength. It also requires a certain element of what I call socialization among the communities to build trust. I know many of you who are in rural areas of Manipur, and I've talked to many of them in the villages. And many of them have said who stayed this is a Kuki village. And there's a Naga village maybe 3 kilometers away. 50 years they've lived, village here, village there. They don't know anybody in the other village. Nobody has ever gone and visited that village, etc. Whereas you won't find that in the rest of India. Rest of India, villages are there, people walk across, they go across, there's intercommunication which is all there, which is not there. And this issue of Manipur, I think it's Manipur only restricted to the valley, whether the hills belong to the Manipur state. I think historically we have got lots of evidence. With even Manipur existed, even there was at some point it existed even in the the Kuba Valley and went up to Mandalay. There are lots of Manipuris who got their relations and their cousins and relations there. It's been a mix for all communities. Everybody has moved across, up and down. But today we are living in India. Whether we like it or not, there is an international boundary, and we've kept the understanding of keeping what we call soft borders is primarily because we know that communities have this relationship across, whether it's in Nagaland. I know I think it's, I forget the name, it's in that Lunglai, not Lunglai, that in Mon district, the chief of that tribe in India, he is actually the chief on 8 villages here and 4 villages in Myanmar. He asked me, he said, which stupid person in India drew the boundary through the middle of my house? We can say it's the British did it. But the soft border is because, as far as the people are concerned, India-Myanmar border doesn't exist, because they've lived like this for last 1,000 years. And just because you draw an international boundary doesn't make it. So there is this need for communities to start engaging much more. We talk of Northeast, we talk of various tribes, there are still many of them who don't know enough about even other tribes in the Northeast. many of the large percentage, I think, if I'm not mistaken, something like 10% of the population of the Northeast is now in the rest of India. You go to Delhi, you go to Bangalore, you go to Pune, you go to Chennai, and so on and so forth, hundreds and thousands. If I'm not, there's even a football tournament in Delhi played by the Tankuls, because there are so many Tankuls here, they have formed, I think, 12 football teams and they run a football tournament in Delhi. That's the number of people who have moved out because of lack of opportunities there. They've come. Very good. It's good that they've come out. They've prospered economically. Some of them will go back with experience and expertise and go back and improve their villages back home. But I thought I just mentioned this issue, that the points which are the key issues, and I think we have to start with the problems that, shall we say, started now, because I'm not talking about the Naga issue, which I'll come into that. It's at the back of all the issues. If tomorrow, I'm just giving as an example, if Kangpokpi district is abolished and merged with Senapati district, another Manipur ethnic conflict, which may be even worse than what you have seen in 2023. So, one has to be careful about issues that can come and which you try to prevent it from coming, because till you have solved these issues, but they are at the back of the problem. And there would be vested interests who don't want this. They will, if I'm losing power, if I want this thing, etc., I put up that issue and create a problem. And again, now you've got, instead of Kuki-Meitei clashes, you've got Kuki-Nagas will fight you. And we have to try and prevent that. We have to look at how we can move forward. And so if you look at 2 or 3 clear issues, one, which was in the narrative, Kukis are not part of Manipur. I think there's enough evidence to show that Kukis are part of Manipur, they're part of Nagaland and so on. The evidence is to show that they are part of Manipur and they've been there pre-independence, and they are Manipuris. And Manipur has the great advantage that everybody speaks Manipuri. They speak their own dialect. The Nagas speak their own dialects. Meiteis have, but everybody, in the whole of Manipur, everybody speaks Manipuri. Even Muiwa speaks Manipuri. So, they've got the common language as one base, and now they have to, all the misunderstandings that have come have to, not by one person, but by independent studies in terms of the population, in terms of illegal migration. How much actually illegal migration is taking place? 2,000, 4,000? We know about, there are about 25 to 30,000 in Mizoram of people who have come because there's a civil war on the other side. Anytime there's a civil war on that side, people are going to come this side. If the Myanmar army bombs a particular Chin village this side, they're not going to wait for the bomb to fall on their head. They're going to run across the border. And they go back also. They don't, everybody likes to go back to his village. Nobody wants to come and stay in a foreign village, even though we might have relations and so on. They like to go back to their village and their farms and so on and so forth. So what are the numbers which are involved? Can we get a survey done? Find out what are the actual numbers and find out how many of these are, what I say, going to be permanent in India, or they're going to go back as soon as situation improves on the other side. Then you had the allegation, and I'll put it allegation because till the proof is there, that the number of Kuki villages in the forest have increased from whatever, 300%, 700%, etc. Some studies, and I'm not saying, I'm just looking at some of the way Kuki villages have formed and reformed. Some have come because, In actual fact, the villages as they moved, and many of them are abandoned villages. If you go today and you see there's nobody there in the villages, quite a large number of them. In some small sample studies which have been done by certain research scholars, they said almost 50 to 60% of so-called number of villages are abandoned villages. How is the government policy of under MNREGA and so on and so forth, how is that encouraging people to form more and more villages? So again, your number is showing, but actual population again is, you got 100 people and they form one village, if become 2 villages or 3 villages, still you have still 100 population. So it's not the way it is put out that is 300% increase and therefore, you know, the Maithis will get swamped by the population. The issues which mentioned, land, is an issue which is, you might call it perception, but it's a perception of the majority population that they are being discriminated against, because we can't buy land in the hill districts, but the people in the hill districts can come and buy land in us, which is much smaller area. You might say that's the law, that all that is fine, but there is a perception, there is a sense of discrimination, and one has to examine it and solve it politically through dialogue. If you don't solve it, you will always have problems again and again. You can't compare 1 acre of land in the valley to 1 acre of land in the hill. I agree. It's much more difficult forest areas. Again, the forest areas itself, for those who know it, there are, reserved forests, there's protected forests, there's what is called civil forests. The different types of forests where different types of rights of people are there, the villagers who occupy those forests. These all need to be discussed, clarified. People have to sit down, have neutral people coming in, explaining what is the issue, see where the issues are and try to do it. Because if you don't do it, all these just remain like, and the media has a great role to play in this. Because you have to say that this is what is the actual ground reality. Not say that, if the number of villages has gone up 300%, it's not 300% population. But that is the insinuation, that is the narrative that is being put, that because the number of villages has gone up by 3, the population has gone up by 3. But if you see that the way villages are created in the Kuki chieftains, this thing, with the village authority and so on, it's not that the population has gone up by 3 times. But that narrative has to come out by people writing articles, through field visits and seeing what is the actual situation on the ground. If you don't do that, then you get this false narrative which is being pushed by interested parties. That forms the main basis for that. ST status for Maithis. All this hullabaloo, you can only get scheduled tribe status if the ST Commission recommends ST status for the Maithis to the Government of India. It's not dependent on the courts, it's not dependent on the state government, it's not even dependent on the central government. It's the ST Commission. So whoever wants and says that I am a scheduled tribe, he has the right to make an application before the ST Commission. The ST Commission will look at it and take the decision. Nobody has to get worried. There are very set, clear guidelines by which you can become an ST. I can't become an ST even if I jump and shout as much as I want. There is very clear, if you see the ST Commissions as earlier in the last 5 years, 10 years, how scheduled tribes have been notified or recommended by them, you will see the criteria which they have given. And this is what again the media has to put, saying that these are the criteria, these are this. If the Maithis feel they meet that criteria, sure, please do go ahead, apply. And the ST Commission is very well respected commission. They will take their own call. So we have to again leave, by putting the correct narrative on board, we can avoid all the, shall I say, the hyperbole and the fears that are raised that somebody is going to get ST status, somebody is not going to get ST status and so on. In fact, even among the Maithis, if I remember right, and I know from a lot of, about even today, 50% of the Maithis are undecided whether they want ST status at all. So, leave it for, there is a statutory process under the Constitution of India. We should leave it that and not raise hyperbole for that. And I think what is most essential now is what we call as exclusive histories. We have to now start, in fact, in our textbooks and so on, which is said, the exclusive histories have to now become inclusive histories. The Manipur history is Meitei history, Naga history, Kuki history, Zomi history, different tribes, all of them are, that is the Manipur narrative. It has to come. And this will come only stage by stage. Stage by stage you will get. And that is why, when I put it, first aspect of course is the state is one sense to impose. You cannot have state having weapons and hundreds of thousands of other people having weapons. No peace, whether you like it anyway or not. But you have to do it in a phased manner where nobody feels that if one community is being disarmed, the other community is not being disarmed. It's something like, I would put it that you should give actually something like, give us 7 days notice to and say, all those who have their weapons should surrender the weapons. And then see, give them time. And after that, if you find people with weapons, all under the Arms Act and other things, you should now take very strict action you should take. You have enough police, you have enough CRPF to be able to provide that basic security. You have to give compensation to those who are in the displaced, in the camps, the people, the health facilities and so on. Very large sense, both from the government of India itself. I think health teams should be, you should have at least 10 or 12 health teams in Manipur from hospitals around India into Manipur to provide the status. Nobody even reports that. I think, if I'm not mistaken, at least my sources tell me that something like about 16 people in the displaced camps have committed suicide, mainly women. That news doesn't come out. That in spite of all the Supreme Court orders, in spite of all this thing, compensation has not been given to most people, and they are surviving on the goodwill of and the support from the community, both sides. The Meitei civil society and the civil society among the hill tribes, they are the ones who are giving the maximum help to not the state government, which is actually the primary responsibility of the state government. For the time being, I think you have to have a temporary rehabilitation in situ itself till such time as trust and the law and order situation is improved, because there's no use saying that, the Meithis are not going to go to Churachandpur. I don't think anybody in Churachandpur who came away from Imphal any Kuki is going to come to Imphal in the near future. That's a reality. We have to live with that. And so for each step we have to take is to build that trust. We have to give much greater role to civil society. The civil society groups all over, both in the valley and in the hill districts. They have to now start becoming active in the sense that the government has to say that we want you to come forward and help us build the trust between the groups. Because there are there's inter-community marriages between Meiteis and Kukis, Meiteis and Nagas, Meiteis and Paiteis and so on. There are so many inter-community marriages which have taken place. And they are the ones who are actually feeling the pain of both sides. They don't know where they are. But if they can get married and they can live happily, why can't the rest also do? But it takes time. And I think that is important. I think it's very important, even though we keep saying what is the Judicial Commission going to do, but the Judicial Commission must give its report. You know, in India, there is very, very high respect for the judiciary in terms of, so a Judicial Commission which gives its report, to an extent, it has a weight. So if it says that X, these are the corrective steps to be taken, it needs to be done. And I think the chairman of I think the media has to, I think that's the role for the media, to actually now start interviewing the chairman of the Judicial Commission and say, what have you been doing last 21 months? Why can't you submit your report? What's your problem? And if he says, I've got ABCD problems, highlight it in the news and say that this is why they can't do it. But this is important. If you don't give enough of the news, which is the actual, what I call as the truth in society which takes place, so each one of these issues which I said, you got the forest issue, you've got ST status, you've got the land issue, you've got another large issue which I didn't want to mention is again both the delimitation and census. Nagaland and Manipur, I think the only two states in India which have not done that delimitation so far. Rest of India have done it, including Kashmir. Now, if you don't do delimitation, which should have taken place with the 2021 census, but if the 2026 or 2025 census doesn't take place, and I'm not so very sure it's there because I find that the budget in the finance budget is been 50% reduced from last year's budget. So there is a feeling, if you look at it purely from that, and not a single word about the census in the budget speech of the finance minister, it means possibly the census is not being done at all. And if you don't do census, if you don't have facts, how much population is there in every village and so on, then it's anybody's guess. He says this is the population, somebody says that's the population, and everybody is quoting the 2011 census figures and giving some other figure today. Nobody knows the facts. So the completion of the census and the delimitation are two very critical issues, because they have a bearing, a political issue, but even if you are slightly pushing it away till the building of the trust, but you have to do this, because that is the way. If your census comes out and then you know that, okay, this actual census comes out and then you say, okay, there is a very large illegal immigration, or there is no illegal immigration, or the illegal immigration only 2,000 or 3,000, then it's not a major factor. If it's illegal immigration runs into lakhs, it's a problem. So if you don't have the facts, then it's again rumor mongering and narratives by various people, then becomes the tail on which, you are. And I mentioned again, other issues, like I mentioned, the district formation and re-district formation, etc., are all issues that can again create problems, which you don't want that to happen. So you have to keep that in the back of your mind, and let us try and it's only let me tell you, nobody from outside is going to solve your problem in Manipur. They will solve your problem in terms of giving you what we call as the background and the background support, but your problem has to be solved by the people of Manipur themselves, by everybody. Insecurity is there. I mean, I've always talked about, in my first, from my 2012 thing, I've talked about how the insecurity is there, and the insecurity is Manipur, Maithis feel insecure, the Nagas feel insecure, the Kukis feel insecure, everybody feels insecure, and that's why you have all these issues which come up. But you have to address all those issues. If you keep pushing all the issues down, we'll discuss it later, we'll do it later, then you run into some problem at one point of time. And I think that is very, very critical for us to be able to take that issue. And from the Government of India, I really want the point is that the Government of India has to realize that this is not just an issue of Manipur, it's a national security issue. The drugs coming into India is a national problem. It's not a problem of Manipur alone. Figures that have been given to me by very authoritative sources is that the consumption of drugs in India today is 1 ton per day in India. Consumption. Earlier, we used to be a transit point and the drugs would go out to other countries in the world. Today, we are consuming 1 ton per day. And we are seizing 3% of the drugs which, when you hear a seizure and say 5,000 crores, 6,000 crores, the total seizures is 60,000 crores. That 60,000 crores is 3% of the total which is coming into India. So you can imagine the problem it is there. And it's not just a Manipur problem. It's a problem in Punjab. It's a problem in Kerala. Because outside high schools in Kerala and schools in Kerala, drugs are being sold. And they are coming from the Golden Triangle the other way. It is a major problem. And for the DG, NCB and others, it's a major problem. So we can't afford to be slack on this. It's a border. You've got Myanmar and you've got China. Many of the drug rings within Myanmar are all controlled by Chinese warlords. So if you leave your border vulnerable, they'll take full advantage of it. Therefore, it's very, very critical for us to ensure that this is stopped and this is sort of tackled on a top priority. It's not a cookie problem, it's not a Methe problem, it's not this thing. It's a national problem. It's a national security problem in many cases. And that is what is essential. And let's close with just the point that all of you, especially all of you in civil society who are in dealing with at all your levels, please reach out to your counterparts, to your friends, to your relations, to your any colleagues and so on and so forth, to get them to start interacting more and more with each other. We need that, what I call as the socialization of different communities in Manipur to increase dramatically. You cannot live isolated in pockets and then hope that problem will not be there. We have to understand each other, we have to live together, we have to solve our problems together. I think that's really my message to you. Thank you.